I think the biggest differentiator between quote unquote WordPress hosting and shared hosting, if you will, across the industry, it's marketing.
Our primary focus is around making sure that the three things that customers care about the most are taken care of on their behalf. So we talk about performance, security, and reliability.
I guess you cannot share too much about sales, but what was the reception so far?
Our retention rate and people who have stayed with the product has been exorbitantly high versus what we normally see on the average. All indications are early data to suggest that we're onto something.
We trust the platform so much that we actually host some of our own properties on there. If you go to Pressable.com today, that is on the same WP Cloud that any other WP Cloud site is on.
What I'm most excited about is where do we go from here, right? It took 3 or 4 months to go from 0 to 100. How long is it going to take us to go from 100 to 500?
My guests are Jesse Friedman, head of WP Cloud at Automattic, the company behind WordPress. WP Cloud is a fully managed WordPress-first cloud platform created by WordPress experts from Automattic. Previously, he co-founded BruteProtect, a cloud-powered brute force protection service acquired by Automattic and now integrated into Jetpack. Joshua Goode, partner success and technical account manager at WP Cloud and Automattic, with over 18 years of experience in web hosting operations. And Kevin Walker, Senior Vice President of Marketing at BlueHost, one of the leading global web hosting providers known for their strong partnership with WordPress. He previously held marketing leadership roles at companies such as Dell, Indeed, InVision, and Issuu. BlueHost has recently partnered with Automattic and implemented their WP Cloud solution as BlueHost Cloud, offering enhanced performance, security, and scalability for more demanding WordPress sites. In this episode, we dig into the details of their collaboration, their approach to WordPress hosting, and their overall view on the web hosting market. Thank you guys for joining. And as this is the first time I have more than one person on the podcast, to provide the full context, let's start with each one of you. To better understand your collaboration, it's good to catch up on where you are with your companies and you directly. So if you don't mind, let me start with Jesse then. Tell us about your story and how did it happen that you are in charge of WP Cloud?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in Automattic for almost 10 years now. And I came into Automattic through an acquisition. Actually, I co-founded a company that focused on brute force protection for WordPress. Joined Automattic with a real focus on providing security services and helping to make that a lot easier for customers. One of the core tenets of what we do at Automattic is really focused on light switch type features, things that just work right out of the box. And so that's where our product BruteProtect was a perfect fit for that. Over the years, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of different hosting companies. And BlueHost is a good example of a really strong partner of Automattic's and a good citizen of the internet ecosystem. And so when we took a product that we had built on our own, WP Cloud, which is WordPress as a service, and made that available to start talking to partners about providing those services to them, BlueHost was like the prime candidate for that. We wanted to make sure that we were bringing these services through a partner that would be a really great applicant for that. So my work through partnerships and working with BlueHost kind of led us towards pioneering what we're calling WordPress as a service through a cloud platform that is WordPress first. And so my experience working with hosting companies kind of really drove that. And then, WP Cloud just became this product and service that I was incredibly passionate about. And so, so that's how we got to where we are right now.
Okay. And Joshua, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm coming up on 6 years at Automattic. I've kind of worked across a lot of our different product lines. Spent a good chunk of that on WordPress.com. Here recently, more so on Pressable. And across both of those lines is my focus has been heavily on WP Cloud and whatever internal name we had at the time for it across those years.
Yeah.
Leading up to Automattic, I kind of worked with managed service providers a bit, so MSPs, and then ventured into craft brewing. But throughout all those, there was something very consistent. I first used WordPress in 2006. And, relatively early on, I kind of returned to that during my break from MSP work. And I really saw a lot of the good work Automattic and the rest of the ecosystem has done. And so when I had the opportunity, I took it. And then once I saw what was going on, the plans to create what became WP Cloud, I knew that's kind of what I wanted to work and focus on. So I do a lot of the technical account management, partner success, but really heavily on the technical side. And I'm actually embedded with, Jesse's on the business side. I'm actually embedded with the infrastructure engineering team.
Tell us more about WP Cloud. You've said that you had a couple of different names. I also know that it's connected to WordPress.com. So tell us what it is exactly.
Over 5 years ago, we set out to build something new. We took the brilliant minds behind powering some of the highest traffic websites in the world with WP VIP, the scale of WordPress.com and the sites we have there, understanding, the needs for managed WordPress through Pressable. And we said, how do we build the next generation of WordPress hosting? What do we do next? And so that led us down a path towards building up our own cloud network from the ground up, actually from bare metal boxes on 28 data centers around the world. And so we set out to do that for ourselves to make sure that we were providing the absolute best WordPress solutions to customers. We wanted to take all the pain and suffering out of managing your instance, keeping WordPress up to date, plugin conflicts, performance, security. All of these things come baked in with WP Cloud. So you don't have to worry about configuring these things or working them out on your own. And so we started off solving that problem for ourselves. And then that was codenamed internally Atomic. And then a couple years ago, we actually decided to make it available to third parties. Really, the real mission there is to drive better WordPress hosting so that we can ensure that customers are having a positive experience. And so we took on the name WP Cloud, and we actually presented that at CloudFest in 2023. Conrad, I think that's actually where you and I met for the first time. And so then, our mission now is really how do we take WP Cloud to the next level by making it accessible to hosting companies, to other companies, to make it so that they can bring it to the front door of these small businesses and individuals who are trying to run their sites on their own.
Mm-hmm. So let me switch to Kevin now. So you are the SVP of marketing at Newfold. How did you get into the web hosting industry? What's your story?
For me personally, it's less to do about the web hosting industry and the people here at Newfold that kind of brought me on. So I've been in infrastructure and kind of hardware. My early career out of business school was at Dell. I've been in the SaaS business kind of through Indeed and some InVision and some others. And then I just happened to meet a leadership team that was fantastic and had an opportunity to think about kind of this particular industry. Although across all of those, one thing I've found is that customer needs are the most important thing to focus on, which I think really circles back to this conversation from a context of, BlueHost Cloud and what we're trying to do in partnership with Automattic. And so certainly looking forward to digging in there.
Mm-hmm. And tell us more about Newfold. Yeah, we are talking about BlueHost, but Newfold is like a large group having one of the biggest hosting companies on the planet together. So tell us about what it is exactly.
Yeah, if you've never heard of Newfold, that's okay. Newfold is just a private equity-backed company that owns a lot of different web hosting companies. And the one that matters most in the context of today's conversation is really BlueHost, in that we've partnered with Automattic to bring a cloud-based WordPress-specific hosting product that's really aimed at super serving those that really need high performing hosting options. And again, everything that Jesse and Joshua have mentioned is true, except if you're not a host like BlueHost or any other, you can't buy it. And so the only way you can really buy the WP Cloud infrastructure is through a separate hosting brand, and BlueHost is one of those brands that we've kind of partnered with Automattic to figure out kind of how do we super serve the high performance WordPress hosting demands of our customers, largely agencies, And that's how we've gotten to where we're at today.
Going back to Jesse, so you've decided to create a cloud from your solution that you already have, sort of. But I guess it wasn't just a simple click of a button. You had to adapt it to let others use it. What were the biggest challenges to provide such a solution?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, we built this cloud platform to be WordPress first. It's different than other cloud platforms. The big giants out there, they have universal solutions. So that means that they're covering everything from warehouse logistics, virtual reality, gaming, the list goes on. WordPress is a fraction of a percent for those companies. And we knew this going into it. So when we started to think about how other companies, you look at other hosting providers and a lot of them do leverage, these cloud giants to provide solutions, but that still requires, a significant investment from their part on, building up a team of experts who know how to run WordPress on that cloud platform, how they're going to provide better experiences to their customers. And the list goes on from there. We said to ourselves, how do we make this so that we can bring it to hosting companies with as little investment as possible? And so, what we've done is everything is API driven, and that allows for BlueHost Cloud to be able to build on top of WP Cloud, but provide the experience that their customers are used to, provide the tools that they want to that are ancillary and on top of our platform. And so some of the things that we ran into as far as issues is just, turning or pivoting from providing what we want to provide to creating a little bit more of, a solution that other companies can customize or create bespoke solutions. So really what we decided on doing was just purely focusing on the platform. That's it. WP Cloud stays out of the business side of the way in which a hosting company might take the product to market. In fact, all we're focused on is the security, the performance, the reliability of those sites. And then that allows BlueHost Cloud to implement their platform user interface on top of it, provide top-of-the-line customer service through phone support, all those things. So once we got through some of those hurdles and working with a partner like BlueHost Cloud made that a lot easier for us, then it became a clear path for us to be able to provide these services to those customers.
And would you mind explaining a bit more on the technical side? So considering WP Cloud as a backend solution for WordPress, are there any specific features or technologies that are making it different compared to many other cloud solutions or providers who are offering WordPress as a service, let's say?
WP Cloud is 100% WordPress focused. So it is a purpose-built platform for WordPress. We put up those guardrails specifically because then we're not trying to optimize for WordPress and 3 other CMSs and static HTML and all these other things. We only need to provide performance and reliability for WordPress, something that Automattic and the company behind WP Cloud knows better than anybody. But Josh is our technical expert on the call, so I will defer to you. Maybe talk about automated real-time failover or something like that.
So for a host and a user perspective, we include so much built in. So as soon as you make, for example, one API call creates a site, there's no server setup that the host has to do. There's no server setup that the user has to do. And baked into all of that, we have page caching, database object caching. The core WordPress persistent object caching is already there on automatically by default. We have global edge caching that is on by default. So that's going to take care of serving page cache at the edge, but also acts as a CDN and is the CDN kind of built in for static assets. All of that with no configuration, all of that, as soon as that site's created, that is on. Now, some of the extra benefits of that is that we have 28 points of presence around the world. And that was something that existed before WP Cloud and is something that really makes us very successful offering excellent performance on just in terms of latency and just getting connected to the content. Thankfully, with WordPress.com, hundreds of millions of WordPress sites, we have established very top tier connections with peering partners around the globe. And so that's actually what allows us to be ranked number 2 on DNS Perf. We're right behind Cloudflare in terms of just the DNS connection alone. And when you combine that with our edge caching capabilities, you're seeing sites where we're beating out like let's say Australia. That's a pretty big area where sometimes companies have issues getting hosting there. We're beating out hosts that actually have major data centers in Australia, and we have an edge center there. But we're not yet fully grown into being just in Australia, and we're outperforming a lot of the local representatives there. But to go, Jesse mentioned real-time replication. So every site is in constant sync with almost like a shadowed version of the site in another region. So let's say you pick Amsterdam to be your primary origin server. That's going to be replicated to another data center in an entirely different region. And so if you have an e-commerce site, all these database changes are being real-time replicated over to that other region. So if something were to happen, there's pretty much no downtime. We're able to automatically flip a switch, and then all of that traffic gets routed to that replica, which has already been up to date with all your current orders and user submissions. And so that just happens almost immediately. And so that allows some of our partners, like BlueHost Cloud, is offering a 100% uptime SLA, and they put their money behind that. I'll let Kevin talk about that more. But there's high confidence in our partners that we are able to essentially allow them to offer that 100% uptime.
So I think the thing I'll top on that, Conrad, is, listen, there's a lot of competitors in the marketplace, and we're well aware of that. And most competitors have gone a AWS or an Azure or a Google, cloud path for whatever reasons they chose. And we very specifically chose to build our cloud product on top of the WP Cloud infrastructure, which is Automattic built. And the reason why is Bluehost is a WordPress brand. And so we don't care if we're not the best infrastructure for Windows infrastructure or an HTML infrastructure or an application hosting need. We're going to really super serve the WordPress user. And so everything that they've talked about, plus one, and Joshua, I critique your comments, it's not pretty much, it is 100% uptime. And that 100% uptime is matched with a financial guarantee from Bluehost that if we're down for seconds or a minute, you're going to get a refund back on the service that you've purchased from us, and with the promise to be 100% uptime. Mm-hmm. The one place that hasn't been really discussed yet is there's still a service need, right? Infrastructure is important. It's the foundation for what we're going to go do. But things break, things happen, and you're going to have a question. And so when you call BlueHost Cloud Service, you're going to kind of skip all the steps. Hey, did you reboot your router? That's ridiculous. That's a novice question. We're going to get you to the experts who understand WordPress, who understand infrastructure, and really are incented to resolve the issue. And a little unknown, or maybe it's known secret, most hosts are trying to figure out, is it a hosting problem or not? And if it's not a hosting problem, they're going to say it's not our fault. My BlueHost Cloud support team is going to be like, what's your issue? Certainly, if it's hosting related, we'll solve it immediately. If we find that it's not hosting related, we're going to dig in. Is it plugin related? Is it on your end? Did you delete something? Is it user error, which candidly is often the case for challenges when websites aren't up. And we're going to spend the time to dig in with you. And we want you to leave the conversation with your issue resolved, regardless if it's a hosting issue, a domain pointing issue, a plugin issue, or candidly user error. And so really excited on the path we're taking to super serve the more professional audience that we're targeting with this product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that also brings me the question, you've probably already answered it to some degree, but why haven't you decided to make your own infrastructure instead of using WP Cloud?
The whole build versus buy is a very common business question. And I'd argue that AWS, unrelated, is the massive organization that it is today with the market share that it has, because a lot of companies have decided, why would I build it when I can buy it? And we had the same situation. We could absolutely build it. But there was, first of all, let me go back a little bit. We're the second largest contributor to the WordPress project behind Automattic. So we are 1,000% in to the success and the vitality of WordPress. And so when we discovered that Automattic was up to something really interesting, we pressure tested it. We put our best and brightest engineers behind, is what Jesse and Joshua actually said true, right? We love them. We're going to take their word for it, but we're going to make sure that they're not lying. And we pressure tested it. And candidly, our best engineers and our head of that department said, yeah, we could build it, but it's probably best just to partner with Automattic. And I'm not going to, let's be honest, right? BlueHost has a reputation they're known for being the shared hosting kind of company, right? If you want cheap hosting, go to BlueHost. And so there is some benefit that comes with partnering with a brand like Automattic to say, hey, we've vectored a little bit, give us a shot, test the product, kick the tires, and see what you think about it on your own. So I think that was also part of the driver behind the decision there.
I'll add to that too. Personally, I was a customer of BlueHost back in the mid 2000s. So I've been using BlueHost for nearly 20 years. And I think that you're right. I think that, Kevin, that BlueHost has been synonymous with providing, I don't want to say cheap, I would say inexpensive hosting. And you guys probably do shared hosting probably better than most. But when you tie that back to the WordPress community and the efforts that BlueHost makes by not only contributing financially to things like WordCamps and helping to make sure that the WordPress foundation is strong and providing the necessary tools and things that everybody needs to run a website. But then you also look at the actual core, the code that your teams are writing to contribute back to the WordPress foundation. It speaks volumes about BlueHost's efforts and what they're interested in providing. And I think that one of the challenges that BlueHost is going to face that WP Cloud can help with is just the messaging around providing this enterprise level, high speed, high security platform. And what's really interesting about the way in which BlueHost Cloud is taking it to market is specifically focused on helping agencies. And so while right now, we're just really getting started. I mean, we've only launched a few months ago. We've had a lot of interest in providing additional tools on top of it. So when we talk to, BlueHost Cloud is talking to agencies on a regular basis to figure out what it is that they need to improve their workflows, what tools they need to optimize their performance, to sell more sites, more clients. That is such an intriguing thing for me because now we are purely focused on the one part that we do best, our cloud platform, but then we get to watch it expand and grow into something else. So this is why, when we combine our efforts here, where Automattic is focused on the platform and the cloud infrastructure, and BlueHost is focused on the tools, the curated solutions that they can create, the partnerships that they can leverage as a company like BlueHost to provide additional services on top of that. I think this is where it gets really interesting for agencies. And if you take a look at the actual BlueHost Cloud website and you get involved in the product a little bit, you learn that what BlueHost is actually aiming to do here is we're starting off very quickly with WP Cloud and a base level amount of services to provide agencies with what they need. But the next phase is to really hear out the agencies, listen to what it is that they need as far as tooling and the next phase of development so that we can build something that is user-centric. We want to know specifically what it is that agencies are faced with that BlueHost Cloud can provide to them to help improve their workflow, to give them more confidence to sell more clients, to provide the support that they need so that they can rest easy at night. The list goes on from there.
Yeah, you kind of nailed a comment that I received. So I've spent a lot of time over the last 3 or 4 months talking to lots of agencies, and a couple have pointed out that you're not charging enough. Right. And so that's the challenge we're in that people see our price point and go, oh, it must not be very good. And the reality is I won't get into the math, but our scale as, when we're talking about the millions and millions of customers that we have, allow us to distribute our fixed cost across a much bigger number of customers. And so we're able to actually provide this high level of service for a cheaper or less costly amount. And we thought when going to market, this was going to be really important because agencies tell us, margins are compressed as, some of this, these builders are getting developed. There's this impression that a lot of customers or clients think they can do it themselves. And so they're compressed. That's not true. We all know that. And so again, back to Jesse, I think you raised a good point. Give cloud or BlueHost Cloud a little run for its money. Throw a site on there, and don't throw a mom and pop shop. Throw a real site on there, and just watch what happens to the performance and the all that stuff, and then know that it comes with 100% uptime, and just see what happens. And then from there, we can have a conversation if it's the right solution for you.
So you've opened the BlueHost Cloud for WordPress recently, but you also had, and you still have, the cheaper option for WordPress. Just a few words, but what are the differences?
I mean, I think there's a couple easy ones. So performance is the biggest vector. So our shared hosting infrastructure, if you look at Review Signal, still best-in-class performance. And we've invested a lot of capital in new servers, new data centers, new networking infrastructure to make sure that when somebody signs up for shared infrastructure, we're going to be best in class. The challenge is, and what we've realized is that there are plenty of clients, largely agencies and high performance sites and potentially universities and some others that really do demand a higher level of performance because of the concurrent users that are coming to that site. And also this guarantee of uptime. So if you're selling a service to a client, you want to be able to tell them that no matter when you go on that site, whether it be at 12:04 a.m. on the East Coast or 10 a.m. on the West Coast, it's going to be up, and we can guarantee that. And so you can't do both of those in the same infrastructure or the same price point. And so, yeah, you can still sign up for BlueHost shared hosting today, for $3, $7, $10 a month in our intro rate, and you're going to get the best-in-class performance for shared hosting. If you need better, you need 100% uptime, you need concurrent visitor demand load, you need to be able to scale up and down and kind of have the manageability to put in a disproportion of PHP workers on one site versus another. Cloud's likely the best solution for you. We also offer domain services. We also offer, professional email, backup and recovery, and a long list of other things that are tangential to the hosting needs. So I think what I'm finding as I talk to more and more agencies is that one-stop shop is actually pretty desirable. That you can just kind of go to one place, get everything you need for your client's web presence, set them up with the hosting, set them up with the security and backup that you need, domain services, privacy and protection on your domain, and of course, whether it be Google, Workspace or professional email services, get that all packaged up, send it out, and be done. And of course, like everyone else in the industry, we make that worth the agencies while financially, whether it be through a referral or best bulk pricing.
So you're talking about performance a lot, but that's actually a question to Josh. What about e-commerce and how e-commerce performance, what are the loads of e-commerce compared to just a more regular site? Do you have any statistics on that and how it behaves in your cloud?
I think, who is it? I have plenty I could say. I also like to refer to third-party sources. Was it Review Signals?
Kevin Ashi's reviews.
Review Signal has really battle-tested it, specifically with WooCommerce. We also have some internal reports. We work with a lot of different agencies across Automattic, helping them get to hosts like BlueHost, helping them maybe some Automattic properties. And along the way, these are larger stores, and they want to know that it can handle it. So they run, we don't always say, hey, yeah, sure. Well, we allow people to run load tests, but it should be done in the right way because we actually have a lot built in DDoS and bot protections and web application firewall. All that's there to protect the site. So sometimes we have to coordinate on that a bit. But we have recently WooCommerce, I think, coordinated with an agency, and they were getting 10,000 checkouts within a very, very, very short. I mean, we're talking about in the span of I don't know how many minutes, but it's able to support very, very high load. And beyond that, I will want to press that if you have a really bad plugin, no matter where you're hosted, you're probably not going to have the best of time. WP Cloud can really take a lot of the brunt of a bad query from these plugins. And again, a lot of the caching that's built in helped, but given that e-commerce sites are so dynamic, we kind of have to understand that while the community is definitely moving forward in the right direction with code quality, we still have some bad actors, and not necessarily bad actors, but just maybe not doing things the 100% right way. So an e-commerce site with one wrong plugin can really take down its ability to serve checkouts. And so we kind of have built in enough performance on the front end, just expecting that someone may want to install some coupon plugin that's going to initiate a lot of bad queries. Now, given all of that, in the rare case, like an issue gets escalated to me from a partner or one of our internal things, we actually work on what optimizations we can make at the platform level. And this is a very, very rare thing, but I do want to stress that we are still trying to make the best WordPress hosting available for hosts, but also the end user, to ensure that we, continue to grow and maintain great relationships with end users. And so we look at what accommodations we can make to some of these plugins. But I personally go out and I reach out to these plugins and we kind of review what changes to their code and what kind of things they can make adjustments for, not just to be more compatible with WP Cloud, but for the entire hosting industry. But I will say, yes, we can handle very, very heavy e-commerce sites. And I think Review Signal, some of their recent tests, is probably going to be the best third-party source to kind of show you what all it can handle.
Yeah, actually, I think in Review Signal, we're competing for first and second place across the board there. And the other thing, too, about e-commerce is it's not just about the performance elements of it, which we definitely handle. It's also about security and the ability to restore. So WP Cloud comes packaged with backups, but on top of that, BlueHost Cloud went above and beyond, and they're offering Jetpack's real-time backup solution as well. So it's an optional element if you want to take advantage of it, which provides real-time backups that include immutable orders for e-commerce. So even if you have to restore back to a certain point, but since that point you sold 10 more orders, you can actually make sure the way in which that restore point operates is that it doesn't override those orders. So if you run into an issue where your store was operational, but somebody broke something, or your client disrupted something and you want to restore that, you don't have to worry about exporting your orders and re-importing them. So we take care of all of that. So it's not just about making sure that the site is performant and secure, but it's also about providing the agencies the tools that they need to be able to ensure that their clients are happy and going to stay with them. Because it's incredibly important to that agency that they also don't experience churn from their clients. And so WP Cloud is really, and BlueHost Cloud together are really focused on how it is that we can provide these services to agencies to make sure that they're optimizing their billings, providing these services to clients in a way that ensures that, even on top of everything else, like, we want an agency to be able to take on even more clients than they have today. When I talk to, I have a friend here I live in Rhode Island. I have a friend who runs a creative agency, and, every single agency is aware of the amount of clients that they can actually take on based on the number of employees that they have. And growing employees is tough because you need to make sure you have the billings and the clients to be able to justify a new salary for a new individual. So what we're aiming to do here is go beyond just simply hosting solutions, but also provide tools and necessary management features so that agencies can actually grow their business without having to worry about expanding. So if we can make them even 10% more optimized in that area, and give them the peace of mind to control these things, then we're doing our job.
And I just want to go back to performance and even e-commerce performance. We trust the platform so much, and we're so happy with it just within Automattic that we actually host some of our own properties on there. If you go to pressable.com today, that is on the same WP Cloud that any other WP Cloud site is on. If you go, we previously had a Tumblr store. It's not online right now. That saw very high volume sales and integrated with the app, and it had its own kind of massive volume there, selling cool little Tumblr things. That was all on WP Cloud. So, we trust it internally for some major brands, and it can definitely take the volume that those get. Without special accommodations, I want to say we're not giving these sites any more extra secret sauce than what a BlueHost Cloud
Customer would get.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
How long did this integration took? From the moment you've set up an agreement, how long did it took, and what were the challenges?
Bluehost has been, I go back to my original point, like one of the largest supporters of the WordPress project, right? We're only second behind Automattic. We've been long partners with Automattic. Sharon, our CEO, and Matt sit down on a regular basis, at least once a month, and just sync. And Jesse and I are close partners. And so, as far as how long it took, this was a pretty quick thing. I mean, it's full transparency. We started the discussion very, very, very late in 2023, and we launched the project in March of 2024. And the reason being is that we have an agile team on our side. They're able to spin up, support on their side through APIs and others, and we're able to put kind of things together very, very, very quickly because we already had the foundation to build on top of, right? It was a quick reorg of our support team and a telephony change. So we had a dedicated phone number to a dedicated support team. So that was quick. If you weren't already in the business that we're in, it would take longer. I can point to other companies that were much, much, much longer to get to market. And so what I'm most excited about is where do we go from here, right? It took 3 or 4 months to go from 0 to 100. How long is it going to take us to go from 100 to 500? Using a speed analogy as a bad example. And, we're very, very quickly learning from our existing customers of, some blind spots that we maybe didn't see or some rough edges that we need to sand down. And that's what I'm most excited about is, getting to launch was easy. Getting to something that we're super proud of and that is close to perfect is going to take a little bit of time. And we're listening to our customers every day to make sure that happens.
Right, but just on the technical side, just that I have the full context. So WP Cloud offers an API, so it's like just a backend environment, right? So you, as a Bluehost, had to take care of the entire interface, right? Or you already had an interface and you've kind of adapted it?
I mean, we already have an interface for our shared hosting infrastructure. It's still a round peg in a square hole, to use that analogy. And so we've got to go make some changes. Again, even though we're one of the largest players in this space, if we choose to be, we can very, very, very agile. And so we dedicated resources internally to go make this happen. So we had a dedicated product team and engineering team to say, hey, you've got a very, very short period of time to figure this out. The good news is we're not relearning how to develop an account manager to spin up hosting instances and, manage PHP. That's stuff that we already know. It's how do we do it in a simplified way? And so one path that we took that makes it very, very easy and fast is less is more, right? These are expert users who understand WordPress, are experts in their space. And so we don't need a lot of the hand holding that some of our more novice users need on our shared hosting. You go to shared hosting today, we're going to have an AI environment. We're going to help you build your site for the first time. And none of that's available on our BlueHost Cloud product because it doesn't need to be there. Agencies don't need that. They need to spin up infrastructure, get a site migrated quickly, manage it, make sure it's up and it's secure. That was very, very easy. And so now that that's done, we're going to spend the time with our agency customers to figure out what else do you need. And we're learning things quickly, like, hey, it'd be great to manage things this way versus the way you've set it up. The team's very, very agile. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you're an agency or a high performance hosting customer, if you come to Bluehost and buy BlueHost Cloud, you're going to be asked to be participatory in some of the early learnings and help shape the product to a way that's going to be most beneficial for you.
So you've launched it on 7th March, right? So it's as of recording of this podcast, it's almost exactly 3 months. So I guess you cannot share too much about sales. But what about the reception from the end customer point of view? Like, you must have had some customers who have migrated from the shared hosting to the cloud. What was the reception so far?
We've had a few migrate to shared to cloud, but we haven't really gone and talked to our shared hosting customers about, hey, you should move. We've really tried to like open up the aperture and talk to customers that we traditionally haven't served very well, which is, again, agencies, universities, people who desire really high performance, high traffic sites. I'll tell you, we launched it, to your point, on the 7th of March. An hour after we launched it, we had our first customer, a company out of British Columbia, Canada. They bought a Cloud 10, which is 10 sites. They migrated their first site. It took less than 15 minutes to get that site up in our platform. They saw traffic going. It must have worked well because a week later, they had 9 more sites migrated over to take full advantage of the Cloud 10. For those of you that are close to this business, churn, right? It's how many people leave after that. Our churn is almost zero, right?
Okay.
I think the people who have called and said, hey, this wasn't what I thought, is really the novice crowd. Who should have never bought BlueHost Cloud to begin with. They're novices who don't understand WordPress, et cetera, et cetera. But our retention rate and people who have stayed with the product has been exorbitantly high versus what we normally see on the average, which I think is a really good signal that we're on to something, that we're super serving that particular niche user case. And, come back kind of a year later, and I'm happy to disclose even a bigger sample size of kind of what we're seeing. But all indications are early data to suggest that we're on to something.
WP Cloud has been on the market for about 3 years, as far as I'm concerned. What are the future directions of that project, and where do you see the opportunities, and where do you think you can improve the service?
Our primary focus is around making sure that the 3 things that customers care about the most are taken care of on their behalf. So we talk about performance, security, and reliability. And at the end of the day, that's what an agency has to bet their business on. When an agency is putting one of their flagship clients on a product, we want them to have the peace of mind to know that it's all taken care of. So this is the beauty of WP Cloud, because while Automattic has its own properties to sell solutions, it allows the team behind WP Cloud to focus on doing one thing really well, narrowing our focus and giving these services to hosting companies to make it accessible across the internet. Because the reality of the situation is that our competitors are not WordPress-based hosting companies. Our competitors are outside of the WordPress ecosystem and closed source solutions. So we are able to leverage WP Cloud as an opportunity to kind of bring hosting companies together to solve for one problem, and that's helping people to own their WordPress presence online. And I'm just super excited to see how a company like BlueHost Cloud can leverage what we're building so that they can innovate on top of it. So we talk about the fact that we've nearly eliminated support tickets around infrastructure with WP Cloud. If you're able to go to a hosting company like BlueHost Cloud and make the case to them that, we're going to take care of the platform for you. And what that means is performance, security, but we didn't even really touch on the full management of all of those things, which means that we're continually tweaking our caching, our CDN to provide the absolute best performance, but it's also configured in a way that the client or the agency doesn't have to actually do anything. Our CDN, for example, automatically resizes images based on the device that's requesting it. So you get into a situation where an agency might be offering a website to a client, and then they give control of that, say their blog or their products for their e-commerce platform, back to the client. If that agency is in charge of managing that solution, they're going to be in charge of making sure that it's performing well. But how do you do that when you give control back to the customer? If you are working with a client who doesn't understand that their phone is going to take a picture of their storefront and it's going to be 8,000 pixels wide and 10 megabytes, and they upload that directly to WordPress. Now it's on the agency. The client's not going to care that they didn't know how to do this or how to resize an image, but it's going to be on the agency because that blog post is loading a 10 megabyte image. So these are the tools that we're building into WP Cloud to make sure that it's bulletproof and that these customers can just kind of work through their flows and everything else will work. So that is really where we're focused on our innovation, is to try and make these tools as simple and easy as possible. And also on top of that, we're doing a lot of work around the management of WordPress, dealing with plugin conflicts, things like that, because when you think about a way a hosting company operates, and if they are not keeping WordPress, PHP, all these other things up to date, then that becomes technical debt on the host, which is typically passed along to the end customer, which is another reason why BlueHost was a perfect partner for us, because even if you look at their shared hosting, even though with all the WordPress websites that they're hosting, they've done a remarkable job of keeping them on the highest versions of PHP and keeping their WordPress instances up to date, things like that. So we're going to be focused on that and making those tools as easy as possible to use, so that we can give back that time to the host to invest back into the tools those customers need to build on top of WP Cloud.
And I'll say, we're just kind of at a lower level tech thing. We have very close partnerships and connections with our hardware providers and manufacturers. We actually can get early access to a lot of server components, and that we're constantly looking at that horizon to ensure that we have some of the best CPUs and so on when it comes to actual hardware. And then, Jesse, I don't know if he's mentioned it today, but we are working on making the API much easier to use. BlueHost really had to dig into it, and it's great, and allowed us to learn a few things. But we want to make sure, if someone else wants to be a host, a WP Cloud partnered host, that they have a very easy onboarding experience. And so that's kind of things I'll be focusing on, but we're going to be providing better tools and better documentation and training to kind of make that process super smooth.
So I actually have a more like a philosophical question. In your partnership, WP Cloud provides the backend, but I guess for many, backend is actually the heart of the web hosting company. And in a case like BlueHost is offering WP Cloud, isn't it making web hosting company just like a sales and support company? Isn't it like a changing the type of the service that you're offering?
I would actually disagree with that in a specific way, if we look at it through a specific lens. So the reality of the situation is that for years, hosting companies have had to innovate by providing services on top of their boxes. So if you remember the old days of WordPress, the 5-minute install was a huge innovation, right? We went from a position of having to go to WordPress.org to download the zip file, take it over to your host, use FTP, upload and unpack that, configure it all yourself. And then all of a sudden, hosting companies started saying like, hey, wait a minute, we can actually just start issuing instances of WordPress. And so there was a lot of innovation in that, in providing a clear path to get to a place where WordPress was accessible to customers. But now that's pretty much the norm, right? Every single host now can provide one-click install of WordPress and configure it and attach domains on top of it and everything else. And so we've gotten to a place where if you talk to agencies, they care enough about the technology that powers the actual infrastructure to make sure that they're asking questions, to make sure that they're vetting hosts, that they know what they're talking about. They are providing the services that they need, and in that way they can remain brand loyal to them. But what it really boils down to is that they care that it's fast and it's up. If you talk to any agency, that's what they're really going to care about. And so when you think about that and the way in which the industry is shifting towards providing a variety of services, you look at any hosting company right now, they typically offer shared, maybe they offer VPS, and then cloud is usually being provided by some cloud giant, right? Whether it's AWS or Azure, Google Cloud. There's a variety of hosting companies that are doing that. And so the thing about that is that they're leveraging that tech to provide solutions to those customers, but they have to be the WordPress experts. And what that actually means is that these hosting companies are working very, very hard to provide these services alone in a silo. And it's very hard for different companies to be able to collaborate in that effort. But Automattic is focused primarily on making sure that WordPress is accessible. So, and since we have been hosting WordPress websites for longer than anybody else, and we've been doing it very, very well for a very long time, we want to allow hosting companies to leverage our expertise in that area. And so, yes, you can think about hosting companies being focused on sales and acquisition. Of course, that makes sense because, without marketing, then no one's going to be aware of the product. But what I'm more interested in and what I'm seeing in terms of a trend here is that there's actually a beautiful thing about diversity in hosting. So hosting companies can provide niche solutions. BlueHost Cloud is taking their time to really focus on providing tools for agencies. But other hosting companies might be focused on, providing different solutions in different areas. And that allows for hosting companies to build out geographic-based solutions or solve for very specific verticals, things like that. And so, really what we're getting to is a place where we can set a new standard for hosting with WP Cloud, make that the core tenets of what a good WordPress host would be, because it is proving to be the fastest and most reliable platform out there. And then that in turn allows the hosting company to really focus on innovating in different areas. So, as long as WP Cloud is providing the absolute best solutions and it's accessible by hosts, then that allows them to refocus their time, their money, and other efforts on providing the ancillary services that make 1 + 1 = 3 in this scenario, and providing a far superior experience for those customers.
I mean, so the only thing I'd add, Conrad, from the hosting company perspective, listen, hosting has always been about a commodity, right? For decades, servers, networking, that's all a commodity. You're buying it from an ODM in Taiwan, Dell, HP. You're getting this commodity box, and it's really about how you're giving access to that infrastructure to your customers and supporting that access in a way that is best in class. Whether we choose to outsource some of that to a third party or own it internally is candidly irrelevant. It's more about where we want to place our CapEx investment versus OpEx investment to get in kind of the business model of it. Do we want to rent or buy? And, how do we kind of allocate those resources in a way that's best for our customers? And I think that's where we land at Bluehost, is what's best for our customers. We are by no means in the minority when we're, renting, right? Which is exactly what we're doing with WP Cloud, versus owning, which is what we're doing with most of our shared infrastructure. But then making sure that we have a layer on top of that, which is really the buffer between the commodity and the user experience, so that everyone is best supported and really taken care of. And I think that's the differentiator. And it's so common in so many other industries where you're taking something that candidly is commoditized, right? There's nothing stopping any of our customers from going to Dell.com, buying a server, putting it in their pantry with network access and managing it, and say, I'm hosting my website out of my pantry. That'd be insane to do that, but that's an option. And it happened 20 years ago. People underneath your desk, right, was a desktop server that you're hosting your, right? So I'm kind of being a bit facetious, but that's really what I think about, right? It's ultimately, at the end of the day, customers shouldn't care. They come to Bluehost or whatever hosting provider you're using, and they're demanding of that host, I'm going to pay you, and in return, you're going to give me a certain amount of value. And at Bluehost, specifically cloud, that value is the best in class performance for WordPress hosting. It cannot be beat anywhere in the industry. That says a lot right there. And that's largely in the back of our partnership with WP Cloud, and best in class support. So when you pick up the phone, you're going to feel like you're taken care of and they're not going through the motions. and you're going to get a first resolution on first call. Pick up the phone, we're going to solve your problem. And I think that can't be diminished, those two things together. And we're really looking forward to seeing what comes over the next 6 months.
I think that speaks to the exact point that we're trying to make is that by having BlueHost Cloud leverage the WP Cloud platform, we're taking a lot of the headaches around the infrastructure and management of those WordPress instances. And now they're bolting on to it this tier 3 phone support. So Kevin and I joke around about it, but I like to call it like the bat phone. It's not very often that you see these days that an agency has the ability to just pick up a phone and actually get WordPress trained support from someone who actually knows how to run and operate a WordPress website. So it is that example that is a prime example of how diversity in hosting is powerful, because Bluehost has the ability and the leverage, the power to be able to train these individuals to provide that kind of support. Other hosting companies may not be able to do that, maybe to differentiate themselves in different ways. But if we take a look at the baseline of what it is that we want to serve and start there, and then we think about what it is that those customers need to add on top of it, that's where you get to a place that's really interesting.
Yeah, we open up a lot of customization options too. The platform, the servers, how WordPress is installed, that's not, that is locked down and for good reason. But when it comes to if you want to load certain shell or PHP scripts or certain plugins and themes, if you want to build out completely novel features on, let's say, how you want to do a database sync between a live site and a staging site, that's something that you can completely build and provide that to your WP Cloud sites within your piece of WP Cloud and just yours. And that, maybe no other WP Cloud partner provides, and it's just you doing that. You can, instead of investing and managing and creating, managing and the infrastructure, it allows you to relocate those resources. If you want to do with support, if you want to make that your big thing, if you want to really focus on marketing, if you want to build new features that are hosted right on these sites, and that can do really cool things. If you want to do all of that's up to you, and it kind of takes away you don't have to spend that money on making sure WordPress is the best WordPress.
You have the freedom to do that.
Yeah, you have the freedom to now focus on, okay, how can I expand it to do the things that I want it to do? How can I expand it to make something that's really unique, and we can take over a certain part of the market or try to be appealing to a broad audience. It's really up to you.
Yeah, listen, to be candid though, for those of you on the phone that aren't a host, right? That is Joshua, I love you, man. We got to hang out yesterday in person. That is a host perspective. If you're not a host and you're an agency or an end user and trying to figure out how to leverage this killer infrastructure, the only way you can do that is, figuring out how to acquire it through an existing partner, and BlueHost Cloud is certainly the biggest partner in the space.
Why are we even talking about WordPress? Why is WordPress so important for the web hosting industry, or for Bluehost to put it in front?
That's a great question. Sorry, real quick. I mean, let's just be clear. Jesse and Joshua are biased. They work for Automattic. I don't. I can offer a less biased perspective. Bluehost is a WordPress brand, so that's where we're focused. We want to make sure WordPress users have the best support and performance that they can get. So that's why Bluehost is focused there. I'll tell you, I work for Newfold Digital, which is the parent company that owns Bluehost, but a bunch of other hosting providers. If you take a brand like HostGator, which I have purview into, right? Completely out of scope of this conversation, but we're just a generic hosting platform. Even though we're a generic hosting platform, over 65 to 70% of the new customers we acquire today choose to use WordPress. And so to your question, Conrad, why WordPress? It's because it's the predominant CMS for someone who doesn't want to use a proprietary kind of semi-walled garden of a proprietary builder. And there's a reason why. It's open source. It's getting better every year as more and more people contribute to the project. And it's going to make somebody who wants to stand up a website that isn't using, again, a proprietary builder that's going to be impossible to migrate from, set up to be successful and agile. And so that's why we're focused on WordPress.
Yeah, you nailed it. Open source is probably the number one answer you're going to hear. But the thing is, if you look at other solutions out there that aren't open source, you get into a scenario here where you see companies coming together to provide these walled gardens. And they lure customers in. I say lure, maybe I shouldn't do that. But you bring in these individuals who have amazing content to create, videos that they want to publish, things that they want to do on the internet, and they want to carve out their bit of the internet. And they're putting them on this content on social media platforms, on video channels, closed source CMS solutions out there. And you look at some of these companies and you see how hard it is for these individuals to actually own their own influence. They can build audiences of millions of people, and then they don't actually have control over that. Those companies take away your liberties with what you want to provide as far as services and content. And so what happens when you're suddenly cut off from your audience? What happens when the algorithm changes and you don't have control over that? WordPress continues to be, and has been from the beginning, a champion of the individual user. It's built by the people who actually use it because it's community driven, and the best developers in the world who are using WordPress every day are the ones writing the code for it. And then on top of that, one of the core tenets of the WordPress Foundation and the community is data liberation. We want to make sure that people own their content. They own everything that it is that they're putting on the internet. And I think that right now we're in a current phase of the internet where people don't actually understand that when they put their content on other platforms, that they don't always own it. They don't have the control that they need. They don't have the experience to identify the fact that things can pivot and change on a dime. I think that WordPress will continue to be the most important part of building on the internet as of right now, to make sure that these individuals have the control that they need to provide the content and to grow their audiences. But you take a look at things like TikTok, for example, you see explosive growth. You put up a couple good videos and all of a sudden you could have hundreds of thousands of followers the next day. And if you don't do exactly what you're supposed to do perfectly, that can change overnight. And the problem is that these algorithms are not very well described. People have to figure it out for themselves. And so what happens when you build a business on top of that? You look at something like Instagram offering e-commerce now. It's one of the scarier things to me because, you can build up a large audience on Instagram. And of course, you want to supplement your website with social media to gain more audience and more share that way. But when you build your entire business on top of a platform that can pivot at any moment and completely decimate your ability to be successful, that's a scary thing. But with WordPress as an open source content management solution, that even if your hosting company disappears tomorrow, you can move everything to another location and keep going. So it takes a little bit longer to build up an audience through a platform like that because you don't have access to immediately tomorrow millions of customers. But when you build it from a grassroots solution like that, you build it up, those become much more loyal, safer customers and users. And I think that WordPress is going to continue to shine in that way.
Mm-hmm. But comparing it to other CMS or open source CMS solutions, why do you think that WordPress have succeeded so much compared to Joomla or Drupal, for example?
Well, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't just say that, Matt's vision for WordPress from early days was I think, resonated really, really well with creators. He, built up a software that was so easily accessible and usable by anybody. So the reality of the situation is that, and maybe we've even been guilty of this ourselves in terms of working at Automattic or in the WordPress community, but the reality of the situation is that a lot of people, they want a website, but they don't want to be a web designer. They want to have their presence online, but they don't necessarily need to know how to write code or build these things from scratch on their own. And it's one more thing that they have to manage on their own. And they don't need to. Like if you look at a small business owner, maybe he has a retail shop like here in Austin, if he's got 1 or 2 employees, that means that individual is not only the person running that business, they're running the accounting for that. They're probably sweeping up at the end of the night, stocking shelves, doing all that stuff. And so having to build a website and be a web management expert on top of that, that's a tough sell to get them to do that. So I think that is where WordPress really shined early on and gained a lot of adoption very, very quickly, was that it was, of all the other solutions out there, the absolute easiest way to get online for someone who's inexperienced. And I think we've leveraged that to grow WordPress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a technologist, right? But as I observe the marketplace, I think it's a fair question, like the why, Conrad. I think the reality is it doesn't really matter. And that if you think about, Betamax versus VHS, Laserdisc versus DVD, right? Like the market shifts. And at that point, it becomes an avalanche of momentum behind the winner, because you've got all these plugin developers that are starting to develop for WordPress versus focusing their attention on other CMSs that are open source. So you're going to pick the winner. And to everything Jesse said, as Matt and his team have kind of figured out how to become the winner, as I observed from kind of the outside in, you get the industry and the kind of the tangential things that matter that make that CMS more powerful. You can only develop a great plugin for one CMS, really, if you want to do it really, really, really well, right? So you're going to pick the one that's winning, and then it's an avalanche and a snowball impact that more and more of the industry goes a certain way. And we've seen that shift. Again, back to my HostGator example, we do offer Joomla and Dupla and other, like the momentum has dramatically shifted to the single winner.
Also talking about the hosting environment, what are the base differences between just a regular web hosting and WordPress hosting, and what are the needs of the end customers? What are the most important needs of the end customers?
I think the biggest differentiator between quote unquote WordPress hosting and shared hosting, if you will, if I'm being transparent today, across the industry, it's marketing. Most hosting providers today will offer the same product and call it hosting or shared hosting and WordPress hosting. There are some differentiators and some outliers, and I think BlueHost is included. When we were managed as a true execution versus a marketing term, managed WordPress hosting and managing some of the PHP updates, some of the plugin compatibility. That's really what starts to differentiate kind of a shared, I need RAM, CPU, and I can put anything from HTML or Windows or WordPress there, to a WordPress hosting, which is we're going to manage PHP updates, we're going to manage security and patches, we're going to also manage to make sure that some of your plugins are compatible with each other. I think that's really the big fork in the road as I observe it across all the players in the industry today. And I'm sure Jesse would have a more insightful view from his perspective.
Well, the one thing I'll point out there is I think agencies can actually relate to this, is that if you continue to narrow your focus and keep it the scope of your project smaller, it allows you to do a whole lot more. If you try to, if you take a 5-person agency team and you try to provide web design services, email marketing solutions, training and support, the list goes on. You're diversifying to a point where you have to be able to provide services that may be beyond your reach at that moment. And I think the same thing goes with hosting. If you're providing specifically WordPress hosting and you're actually doing it, you're not just marketing it, but you're actually providing narrowed focused WordPress hosting, that allows you to say, okay, I'm going to put up these guardrails. I'm not going to allow these other CMSs on the platform, which means that I can fine tune our solutions to be, very centric to that one thing.
What do you think will happen in the web hosting industry in the next couple of years, especially given the danger for the web hosting industry from all the SaaS providers that keep growing right now and getting more and more attention?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're seeing as a trend in the hosting space is to stop thinking about hosting in general. When I think about hosting, and when I walk around this conference and I talk to individuals and we think about hosting, it doesn't really resonate anymore with the old version of the term or where it came from, right, which is hospitality. I think a lot of times, hosting companies in general tend to try and provide, very specific solutions to customers, or trying to open the door to new technologies, partnering with different things. What gets me excited about the partners that we're working with is around providing, a better web presence, a holistic experience. So it's not like, as Kevin mentioned before, it's not about like describing the specific CPUs that you're using to solve a problem, but it's more about saying like, I know the tools and features and things that you need to provide services to your customers. And so we're going to provide that as a holistic experience. So you don't have to go and sign up for 12 different things in 12 different places and get support from 12 different companies. Instead, we're going to be able to get to a place where, companies are going to be able to provide everything that you need from a single checkout point. And that, I think, is going to be really intriguing because it's, with BlueHost Cloud, it's about agencies and agency tools. But what gets really interesting is when you start to think about the way in which companies can provide services specifically to very specific verticals. Like, there's no reason that BlueHost Cloud, like after we solve for agencies, that we can't pivot and move on to universities, for example, or colleges, and be able to provide them with the best solutions that they need. And if you get to a place where the infrastructure underneath of it is so fine-tuned and operational that you don't have to worry about all those components, then you get to a place where you can start to offer the services that those companies need on top of it. So a university is going to have very different needs than an agency who's running one client at a time. A university might need to be able to empower their own students to spool up new WordPress instances. How do you do that in a secure way? Well, those are things that we can start to solve for. And I think that is the trend that we're starting to see within the hosting industry, or at least what I hope for is that, we're going to be focused on providing solutions for individual industries or ecosystems rather than trying to create universal tools for everybody to use the same way.
But Conrad, there's no difference between the SaaS providers that you're talking about and the hosting providers. I mean, hosting is technically infrastructure as a service versus software as a service, right? But what the quote unquote SaaS providers have figured out is that the infrastructure layer is a commodity. And how can I add value on top of it to call my offering SaaS and charge end users, candidly, a lot more money for that commodity plus value add on top of it? And so I think, to your question, what do I see happening in the hosting world is for us to follow suit. There was this race to the bottom across the industry. If you look at intro rates over the last 10 years, you see this just skyrocket race to the bottom of $2 a month for hosting. Like you can't even get a third of a cup of coffee for that a month, for one cup, let alone a month's worth. And so I think you're going to see this recoil across the industry where hosting providers say, hey, what do our customers actually need? What's the end state of what they're trying? And to Jesse, your example, whether it's an agency or a restaurant or a university or a gym, you're trying to drive subscribers, get new customers in your restaurant. Like, that's the end state. And the hosts that can pivot to deliver that end result through a package of hosting and the things, right? Whether it be reservations, e-commerce solutions, SEO services, whatever it might be. The ones that can do that well are the ones that will be joining your podcast in 5 or 10 years because they'll still be in business. The ones that can't figure that out will be ones that we talk about in the past tense.
I'm so glad you brought up the race to the bottom, Kevin, because that is probably one of the more dangerous things that's happened in the industry. It's funny because if you walk around CloudFest, you'll see 24 hosts, and you can ask every one of them if they feel like the race to the bottom is a good thing for the industry. Not one of them is going to say yes. But we're kind of stuck in this weird spiral where we're devaluing what it is that you're actually getting. I mean, what are you getting? You're getting the ability to carve out a portion of the internet, one of the most influential and innovative things that have ever happened to the human race. And you have that online presence, and we're trying to minimize the cost that's behind that. And what does that end up doing? The only way you can reduce costs is to reduce value. That's it. There's no other way to do that. So as we start to dip down, of course, technology gets cheaper, but it's not really the technology that's driving the cost. It's the additional ancillary products, is the support on top of it, all of those things. And so when we decrease that price so much, you're actually decreasing the value of it. And so you have to make up for that in some way. And so then what do you end up with? You end up with 16 add-ons that you have to bolt on at additional costs, And so anyways, I'm starting to see as a trend, it seems like certain hosting companies, BlueHost is a great example of this, pulling up on that stick and rising, not necessarily just to rise prices, but to increase the value of what it is that you're getting and reset our minds around that. Because Kevin, you're absolutely right. $2 a month for a website, and you're spending $6.50 for a cup of coffee now. It's it's completely mismanaged. So I think that as we can start to represent a greater value of having a portion of the internet in your name, people are going to represent or recognize that in a better way, and that's going to be better overall for the entire ecosystem.
So I'm going to finish with the last general question that I ask everyone. What would be your advice to other hosting providers, or someone who wants to start a web hosting, or someone who wants to start WordPress hosting and start offering WordPress hosting the right way? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, we can get into the technological specifics. I could give you a hard sell on WP Cloud, but I think really what the key here is that no matter what, if you want to get started with that, you need to approach it from a user-centric standpoint. If you try to be another run-of-the-mill host who is just trying to provide technological services to customers and a universal fit, you're going to miss the market, and you're also going to be competing with a great deal of companies that are already doing that with much larger marketing and advertising budgets than you'll have when you're starting out. But if you can sit down and talk about what it is that you want to solve for, what you want to bring to the table that's different than everybody else, and you do that from a user-centric standpoint, you're going to be set up for success there better than others. And that's to be, the sales guy that I am, and to circle all the way back. I mean, that's exactly what BlueHost Cloud is trying to do, right? Is that they know that they've got the basics down. So now the question is, how do we get in touch with agencies and other customers to make sure that the next thing that we build on top of this is driven by the things that they need and not necessarily by what we think the industry is telling us that we want. So I would say to any of those people out there, just start by trying to solve specific problems for specific customers and see if you can tie that all together into a solution that is holistic for that individual, so they don't have to go and get support again from 10 different companies and pay for 10 different things. And I think you'll be off to a better start than most.
I think if I got my second kid's number one in his class, smart kid, the apple falls far from the tree, if you will. If you were to come up to me and say, Dad, I want to start a hosting company, I'd say you're nuts. Out of all the other opportunities in the world today, why would you start there? I think there's so many other more fruitful, exciting areas to go start a new company, and hosting would not be where I would start, and largely because you're going to have to take share from an existing company, and taking share is extremely difficult, especially when, to Jesse's point, you've got these organizations with a foundation, and they're building on that foundation. So AI, all the other fun stuff, go do that. Don't do hosting.
I just wanted to add, though, if you decide you want to be a WordPress host and you decide you don't want to use WP Cloud, you want to build this on your own, a really important thing to keep in mind is that, you're representing WordPress when you do this, when you choose to be a WordPress host. So I just really ask if anyone's listening to this is going to start a new host, going to build it on their own tomorrow, please, performance, security, and just really making sure that you're not supporting old versions of PHP, old versions of WordPress. Really hone in on your caching. We have Backcache. It's open source, Automattic. That's not a bad thing to do. Get your object caching built in. Do things the right way so that you represent WordPress well, and that you can actually provide some quality hosting.
Joshua, we already talked about this.
I know. Well, I'm saying
no sane person no sane person would get in the hosting business. They're
I
going
know.
to create their amazing AI company. And when they build their website, they're going to build it on WordPress on BlueHost Cloud.
Yeah, well, and now I was going to finish it off. It's like, if you want all those things, you don't want to build that yourself, there's WP Cloud. And if you're an agency, if you're an end user, and you want to fill that, get all those benefits today, there's BlueHost Cloud.
So let's end with this. Thank you guys for joining.
Hey, Conrad, appreciate it. Have a great day, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.